Hola Nuevo Mexico, hello New Mexico, and welcome to another episode of Around the Roundhouse, a podcast featuring the policies, politics, and personalities of the land of enchantment from our beautiful state capital here in Santa Fe and beyond. My name is Daniel Chacón, and I'm the State House reporter for the Santa Fe New Mexican. Our guest this week is Cam Crawford, Vice Chair of the Democratic Party of New Mexico. When Mr. Crawford is not involved in politics, you might find him at the firehouse or perhaps even the schoolhouse. Mr. Crawford is a full-time firefighter as well as a substitute teacher. A New Mexican by choice, he dove in headfirst into trying to make New Mexico reach its full potential. Cam, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks, Daniel. Good to be here.
Cam, before we dive into politics, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to New Mexico.
That's a great question. Well, like you mentioned, my name's Cam Crawford. I'm in my mid-20s, and like you mentioned, I'm a full-time firefighter. That's what I do in order to survive and make money. And then, in addition to being a firefighter, I'm also a substitute teacher with Santa Fe Public Schools. I remember coming to New Mexico as a kid in my teen years, and I knew I wanted to be here. And so I made every effort possible to come to college here, made every effort possible to build my life here. And so it feels good to finally be here and be a part of the community and be so engaged.
What was it about New Mexico that called to you?
There's no other place in the world like here. We have so many diverse cultures, a unique history, very amazing landscapes that you can't find anywhere else on earth. And so there's no place like New Mexico. And I think that when I was finally presented with the opportunity to come here, I took it. I did everything possible to be able to be here. So it's good to finally be here.
Well, as a New Mexico native, I could not agree with you more. I know firefighters work, kind of sometimes I think 48-hour shifts. So I'm curious how you find time or when you find time to be a substitute teacher and how that works.
Yeah, so we work 48-hour shifts I work for Santa Fe County. We work 48-hour shifts and we have 96 hours off. And oftentimes when I'm getting off of my 48, I will go home for an hour or so, pretend to sleep, and then change into street clothes and go substitute teach at Capitol or Santa Fe High or Ortiz or Salazar Elementary. And I'll spend the day there. And it's a great way to be involved with kids and learn about what our teachers are going through. And it really takes the pressure off of our teachers because, when we can't find subs, teachers have to miss out on their prep periods. And so I want to do everything I can to support our teachers. They are one of the most important aspects of our community. They educate our kids. They inspire the future. And so anything to take the pressure off of them is something that I would really enjoy being a part of.
I was curious if you did substitute teaching as a way to give back or to supplement your income or both.
Both, both. So I live in Santa Fe. Santa Fe is expensive. And that's just what you have to do in order to make ends meet here. I know plenty of people in Santa Fe who work more than one job. I like to call it second job Santa Fe because so many of us are working 2 or 3 jobs in order to keep a roof over our head, feed ourselves, feed our families. And so, yeah, it's a great way to supplement my income, but also it's important and it's constructive. So that's why I enjoy doing it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for giving back. Did you set out to become a firefighter? Was that your career goal?
No, originally I had planned on going to law school. And then I got to high school and my grades just were not on par with going to law school. And so, kind of needed to do something once I graduated. And then I went to college during COVID. And so that made things really interesting and just realized I really needed to find a skill and get a certification so that I could support myself. And so I saved some money. I put myself through EMT school. And then as soon as I came to New Mexico, I really set out to then join the fire department. And I was looking at a few different departments. I had visited every county in the state, and I had applications open with a few other departments. And then luckily, county called me back first. And it's been a great career so far.
Awesome. I read somewhere that your dad was a police officer and your mom was a nurse. So I'm also curious if public service kind of ran in your blood, in your veins.
I think so. I mean, we're only here for a very short amount of time as human beings, right? Like we have some of the shortest lifespans in the animal kingdom, and it needs to be constructive. We need to be making sure that we spend our time trying to improve the lives of others. And so, when you bring that to bear on the conversation, then you add in politics on top of that. Uh, it's a perfect mix of things in order to stay involved and get yourself involved. And so, but definitely having parents who are involved in public service was a good entry point for me.
Can you give us, given your experience as a substitute teacher, can you give us a little bit of a glimpse into our public education system from your experience? What, if anything, do we need to do different to improve our education rankings in New Mexico?
So much. First and foremost, our teachers are not okay. Our teachers are not compensated enough. They have a very difficult time finding housing, oftentimes, especially where we live in Santa Fe, but also in places like Taos. Um, we need to support our teachers better. And then on top of that, uh, you know, the curriculum could use some adjustments. But I know that we've begun to change the way that we teach kids how to read, for example. We've moved to teaching phonics, which is really important. That's how I learned how to read. That's a fairly new change in the curriculum here in New Mexico. And then, we really just need to continue to address poverty. A lot of the time, the kids, when they come to school, that might be the only time they get to eat for that day. They are spending so much time with these teachers who often take a really big part in raising these kids. And so I think that when we couple addressing poverty, which we are doing, and then we continue to support our teachers by making sure that they are well compensated, I think that'll go a long way in making sure that New Mexico continues to move up that list that we often find ourselves on the bottom of so many times.
I will note and give a little bit of a shout out to the legislature and our governor that they have made efforts to increase the starting pay of teachers. So hopefully that's making a little bit of a difference. Do you think it is?
I think it's a great start. I've also heard from teachers that the insurance that they have to pay into pretty much negates the wage increase. And so it's a great start. And we need to continue to raise teacher pay. I think teachers should be on par with nurses because they're just so integral to how society functions. But we've taken that first step, and I think it just opens the door for us to continue to take more steps so that we can give our teachers what they're owed and what they're worth, which is ultimately priceless. So.
Yes. Yes, sir. Cam, let's switch gears here a little bit. How did you get involved in Democratic politics, especially here in New Mexico?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been following politics since I could barely reach the table. I remember being 3 or 4 and hearing words like economy and Congress and what does the president do and what does this person do. And so it really started out at a young age. And then, being a young man, a Black man in America when Barack Obama was elected, really told me that this is something, I could be involved in too. I came from a place that was not a blue state, but when I came to New Mexico, which is pretty decisively blue, it made sense to get more involved because this is a place where you can actually make things happen. And so, we have a lot of things to be proud of here in New Mexico. The Democratic Party has made great strides in improving the lives of average New Mexicans. And so, yeah, why wouldn't you want to be a part of something like that? And it was very easy to get involved. It's a small state. And you just start showing up to meetings. And eventually people start asking you to do things. And the answer is always yes. Yes, I would like to be more involved. And so it kind of just snowballed. And I got more and more involved. And then one day I woke up and I was vice chair of the state party. So.
Help us understand, what does the vice chair of the state Democratic Party do? What are your roles? What and responsibilities?
Yeah, so officially, I am charged with chairing a special council within the party that adjudicates disputes. Beyond that, it's pretty much the role. The role is what you make it. It's sort of like the lieutenant governor or the vice president. I have a lot of personal projects that I work on. One of the things that I'm really focused on is doing college town halls, making sure that we reach out to young voters, because frankly, young voters have left the Democratic Party, and they've begun to either become Republicans or they just completely stop engaging with politics altogether. And so, so far I've done 2 college town halls. We've done yet one at UNM. We've also done one at NMSU. I want to do more. I want to visit every single college campus in the state and hear from our young voters to see what they want out of their Democratic Party. And then beyond that, it's very important that we organize in every single one of the 33 counties. When we have a strong local party, then we can run candidates, and then we can start to compete in places where people don't even think that Democrats can compete. And so that's what I've mainly dedicated my time to, is rebuilding the Democratic Party in our counties, and then also reaching out to young voters through college town halls.
As a follow-up, why do you think that young voters are steering away from the Democratic Party? Or
I
what?
think there's a lot of reasons. I think that number one, like, we need younger candidates. Oftentimes, people, just in general, not even young voters, want to vote for candidates that they can see themselves in. And I think the Democratic Party has had a critical failure in fulfilling that mission. So number one, we need younger candidates. And then number two, the Democratic Party, since I've been alive, has not necessarily met every moment with transformational change. So, older folks can remember a time where, FDR was the standard bearer of the Democratic Party, and he lifted millions of people out of poverty with Social Security. Older voters can remember a time when Lyndon Baines Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act and Medicare and Medicaid. Young voters have never seen the Democratic Party act in that way, that transformationally changes people's lives. And so I think that when you have so many years of that, pretty much starting in the 1980s and 1990s, eventually they're like, okay, well, let's try something else. And so they either vote Republican, and then they experience how that is, or they stop voting altogether. And so I think that, when I think about my time with the Democratic Party, I want to be able to say, like, look, we got caught trying to rebuild trust with not only young voters, but Hispanic voters, Black voters, so many different groups of people who feel like they've been taken for granted by the Democratic Party for so long.
Cam, is the role of vice chair your first sort of foray into an elected office? And the reason I ask is I'm curious if you have political aspirations yourself.
Yes, yes to both. I ran for vice chair. I wasn't really expecting to win. I kind of just did it as a way to, offer my skill set to the party, offer a working class perspective to a working class party. And so I won, and it put me in a position to be able to speak to working class issues. And then, I think that, being a young person who's watching what's going on in the world, absolutely, I would like to run for office at some point. I think, city council would be realistic. I think county commissioner would be realistic. But the important thing is to focus on the work. So then later you can then come back to the people and say, look, I did all of these things. Please give me a promotion. And let me serve you in an even larger capacity. So yes to both.
Okay, fantastic. I got to ask you about a story that I had written about recently. Not long after the Democratic Party of New Mexico had elected a new leadership team, Treasurer Julie Rockman abruptly resigned, citing a rocky relationship with you and the new chair, Sarah Adelson. From your perspective, what went wrong? And should Democrats be concerned about any kind of friction within the executive team?
Well, I think first and foremost, the fact is that Julie was a part of a slate of candidates that didn't win. And I think that she decided ahead of time that she didn't want to be a part of this team. And that's fine. It's a free country. People can associate with whoever they'd like. They can vote for whoever they'd like. It is what it is. But the fact is that despite maybe some drama with the local parties or the state party. Like, we are focused on improving people's lives at the Democratic Party. We've raised the minimum wage. We've legalized cannabis. We have made childcare free for every single New Mexican. Every single New Mexico kid who walks through their doors to school can eat free breakfast and lunch. And this is all happening even with some internal stuff. And so I don't think any New Mexican has anything to worry about with regard to having, internal disputes. Our party is effective, and we're focused on improving people's lives.
Okay, fantastic. I noticed earlier that on the Democratic Party of New Mexico's website that the party has filled that role, not only with the treasurer, but an assistant treasurer. And I noticed that they both have Hispanic surnames. After Julie had resigned, she said the party's executive officer team had failed to represent the state's majority Hispanic population. Did she have a valid point? And was the election of these two folks to serve as treasurer and assistant treasurer, was that a concerted effort to get some Hispanics on the executive team?
I think that the Democratic Party is big enough for everybody. This state is big enough and beautiful enough for all of us. And so it's important to us at the Democratic Party to make sure that every group feels represented. Whether you're Anglo or Black or Native American or Hispanic, like, you deserve to be able to see yourself in the Democratic Party of New Mexico. So it was important to us to have somebody in that role who could help reflect the beautiful mosaic that is our state. And they're doing a great job. I have full faith and confidence in them. It has been a pleasure working with them, and I look forward to getting things done with them in the future.
And it sounds like the executive team is pretty unified at this point.
Absolutely. We chat all the time. I'm on the phone with our chair at least a few times a week. We're constantly bouncing ideas off of each other. We love our jobs, and we love this state, and we're not going to let any difference between any of us get in the way of the central goal, which is just like improving people's lives, supporting working families, making sure that everyone in New Mexico feels comfortable enough to be here, to be a part of our community.
Okay. The Democratic Party of New Mexico just came off of its state central committee meeting in Socorro. What was the purpose of the meeting? And just from your perception, what is the mood among Democrats these days in New Mexico?
Yeah. Well, I think that, so firstly, the state central committee is essentially our governing body, similar to like a board of a nonprofit. And we want to make sure that we keep them in the loop about what their officers, committees, and caucuses are up to. And so essentially what that meeting consists of is updates from the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, the secretary, on what they've been working on, making sure that, we're not just here sitting like bumps on a log. We're actually getting out in the community. We're trying to work hard for every single vote. And then that has devolved into our caucuses and our committees who help us with that effort by focusing on specific areas of interest. So we have an environmental justice caucus, we have a rural caucus, we have a Black caucus, Hispanic caucus, and every single caucus and committee is critical to making sure that we achieve things for New Mexicans. Just like firefighting, politics is a team sport. And we can't work or get anything done without every single member of our team. And so it is part pep rally, part serious. And we just have a good time. We talk about what we've been working on.
Okay. And just as a follow-up, what was the mood at the meeting? Are Democrats worried about November? Are they talking about President Trump and what Trump is up to? I mean, what are Democrats kind of? I know everybody's different, but kind of general mood among Democrats.
Well, I think we're very excited. We just came off a very successful election cycle. 32 out of 33 counties had an increased rate of Democratic turnout, and we're explaining to people that being a Democrat is more than just being opposed to Donald Trump. It's also standing for something, making sure that we are the party of raising wages, making sure that we are the party of affordable housing, making sure that we feed people. These are the things that we're focused on. These are the things that we're articulating to people. And when you go to anyone, whether they're a Democrat or an independent or a non-voter, and you explain to them and you make an affirmative case for the Democratic Party and our policies and our platform for working families, you can't be anything but excited.
Okay. What is or should be the strategy for Democratic candidates ahead of the high stakes midterms in November 2026? Because from what I've seen so far, it's to attack Donald Trump.
I think that the focus needs to be on what we would do differently than the Republicans if we had power. I think that when the 8 years of Donald Trump finally come to an end, people will be able to look to New Mexico as the model for what democratic governance could look like in America. We're focused on making sure that people who are on food assistance can eat. The Republicans are not. We have made it possible for every single New Mexico kid who graduates to be able to go to college for free, debt-free, tuition-free. That's what we're focused on in New Mexico. We are focused on raising wages. The first time I ever got a raise was when I came to New Mexico. The first time I ever joined a union was when I came to New Mexico, because New Mexico made it possible for unions to be a part of our dynamic. And so I think when we focus on what we're for, when we have an affirmative agenda for working people and regular people, the average person, that's the best strategy possible. And then secondly, we need to make sure that we are reaching out to every single one of our 33 counties, whether they're red, blue, or somewhere in between. We need to be showing up everywhere all the time, making sure that we articulate the message that we're running on, our agenda for working families, making sure that people can afford a roof over their head, making sure that you can send your kids to a well-funded public school with well-compensated teachers. I think that's the best strategy. Yes, it's important to talk about Donald Trump, but it's also important to talk about what we would do differently for people.
I want to just play devil's advocate, if I could, here a little bit. You said that Democrats are focused on making sure that people who are on food assistance can eat, and Republicans are not. Would you agree that that's the case in New Mexico? Because we did have bipartisan support for some of the measures that were considered during the special session.
Fundamentally, people are very focused on national politics right now, and the fact is like the Republicans, shut down the government. They were not focused on making sure that people could get food assistance. Donald Trump withheld money that was already approved for food assistance. He would not allow it to be dispersed in order to make people whole. But we did that here in New Mexico. And, it was a Democratic governor who called the special session in order to shore up that food assistance. So, I don't know how the vote shook out, but I do know that the Democratic Party took initiative and was proactive in confronting that crisis.
All right. You mentioned the federal government shutdown, and I wanted to ask you about New Mexico's congressional delegation. They're all Democrats, and they did take some criticism for voting against the deal to reopen the government, although, primarily because it didn't include an extension of tax credits that Americans depend on for their health insurance. But I'm curious if you think that those votes will hurt folks like Heinrich or Ben Ray Lujan.
Well, you just said it, Daniel. These are subsidies that people are depending on. And the subsidies that people are depending on are the same subsidies that the Democrats were fighting to extend, and the same subsidies that the Republicans were trying to cut. And so I don't think it'll hurt. I think that ultimately the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's on them to put forward a budget that can garner enough support from Democrats. All my life, I've heard that Democrats should be reaching out to Republicans. It's never the other way around. And so when they're in charge, it's on them to put forth a budget that works for all of us. And so, every person in Congress is entitled to vote however they like. But ultimately, if the Republicans want to reopen the government, then they need to offer a budget that Democrats can vote for.
Okay. I also wanted to ask you about the race for governor of New Mexico, which seems to be heating up day by day. Do you anticipate that Democrats will have a bruising primary as Deb Haaland and Sam Bregman, as well as Ken Miyagishima, kind of battle it out for the Democratic nomination for governor?
I think that competitive primaries are a good thing for any political party. It is a competition of ideas. People in a competitive primary, pay more attention to it. I think that primaries are good for democracy. And so no matter who comes out on top of that primary, I think that all the energy is going to be on the Democratic side, because we've had a discussion and a debate and an articulation of a range of ideas, and the best Democrat will come out of that primary.
Okay. Well, Democrats could potentially end up with a double female ticket in the governor's race, and it could be possible that neither of them are Hispanic or have a Hispanic surname. And I'm curious if the Democrats feel that is that a concern for Democrats?
I think that the biggest concern for Democrats should be having an agenda that works for working people. Black people are less than 2% of the population in New Mexico, but I know what it means to, pay more than half of my income to rent. I know what it means to, not have health insurance. I know what it means to have to pay student loan debt. I think when we have candidates who are able to articulate the experiences of working class New Mexicans, that's what matters most. And when that candidate goes out and tells that story to people, what you look like, what your last name isn't going to matter. And we should be focused on the issues that matter most to people.
All right, fantastic. Cam, it's been a really delightful conversation. Am I missing to ask you anything or anything that you'd like to tell our viewers and listeners about yourself or about the future of the Democratic Party of New Mexico?
Well, like I mentioned before, we are working very hard to improve lives for working families in New Mexico. We Medicaid trust fund for people who rely on Medicaid. Democrats did that. Shoring up food assistance. Democrats did that. Making sure that every kid can go to school and not have to worry about school lunch debt. Democrats did that. This is a party that every single New Mexican can see themselves in, and every single Democrat can be proud of. And I'm really looking forward to contrasting that with the Republicans in the upcoming elections. And beyond that, we're not taking any single voter for granted. We're reaching out to counties that are urban, counties that are rural, counties that are red, counties that are blue. We're going to make sure that we compete for every single vote. And it is the party's job to go out and earn every single vote. And that's exactly what we're going to focus on.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it's really been a pleasure to get to chat with you. Thank you for being our guest. And as always, thank you to our viewers and listeners for tuning into Around the Roundhouse. Join us every week as we talk to newsmakers in the political realm by subscribing to our podcast through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. For the latest developments, follow our coverage online at SantaFeNewMexican.com, where you can also subscribe to our political newsletter, The Roundhouse Report. Until next time, I'm Daniel Chacón, and this has been Around the Roundhouse.